So in this last section of the module, we will look at defining the project statement, which is the very first phase of any project. And what we want to do is we want to discuss what are some of the questions we need to answer and how to actually use secondary research to try and frame the challenge. So 5 questions that we would like to answer in the define phase to get everyone on the same page in terms of what is required for this particular project. Who are we designing the service for? Is it for students? Is it for public? Is it for elderly? Or what are their demographics like? Why do we need to design it? So what are some problems they are facing? What have people said about the service previously? What are we designing? Are we actually looking at a mobile app, online website, or is it some other form of service? Where will the user experience this service? So will he be using this service at home, or in the public, or what are certain considerations you have in terms of location? And finally, when will this service come in useful? When there are times of need where the user will turn to this service. So these are the 5 questions that in the tutorial that you'll be going through, you'll be discussing these 5 questions. So, for example, if we have a project statement like how can we use sports to engage the public in Singapore? So in terms of the who, it would be actually the public. But even then, when we talk about the public, there are also a few different segments within the public. It might be helpful to define which segment of the public that we are designing for. Why do we need to design it? So sports today is commonplace in Singapore, but it is meant, sometimes there's a perception that sports is only for healthy or sporty people, for sportsmen, but how can we actually use sports to engage a larger public, and why do they need it? So if we were to work on this project statement can be further enhanced by talking about the why also, potentially so that for the common good or to actually serve the community, these can be all possible why answers. And what are we designing? It could be something along the lines of potentially programs for the public. It could also be a website. It can take a few different forms. At the broad level, actually, this project statement is still quite open. Where will the user experience this service? If we are clear about, like, for example, we are actually using this particular project statement during a pandemic, then maybe users will actually experience this service in their own homes because they might not be able to go to their sports complexes. And when will this service come in useful? So potentially, in times where people might not be able to have access to sports facilities, maybe when during the pandemic, or it could be even beyond just engagement, but also getting people to become healthier. So all these can form part of the when it will come in useful. So by actually answering these 5 questions, the entire group can have a common understanding of what the team wants to build towards, and you can also check in with your tutor to make sure that you're on the right track. So this is just an example. During the tutorial itself, your tutor will be releasing the project statement, and that is where this discussion in the define phase should happen. So immediately when we determine the project statement, one thing we can quickly do is actually start on the secondary research. And secondary research is important because it gives you an understanding of things that have been done, things that are in the market, what people currently feel, what people currently say, which is all available on the web already. So what are some common sources of information? It could be articles that are written. So if we are talking about how to engage the public for sports, maybe we can look for articles written by maybe in the newspaper, Channel News Asia, where they talk about like staying healthy and what people are looking for when they do sports. Maybe we can also look at reviews for like apps like Fitbit, for example, or the Apple Watch. what do they say about like using this kind of technology to track their health and track their exercise routine, or even on social media, what do people say, what do they like about uh, exercising, and what are they saying about, like, for example, going to public sports facilities. Do they find it troublesome, or do they find it enjoyable? Do they find the facilities well equipped, and so on? So there are multiple sources of third-party information, and you can actually easily find them out there. So this brings us to the end of the lecture. Proceed to the next video for a quick summary of what we have completed in the past 3 or 4 videos. Thank you.